Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of Virtuell Hverdag. In this episode, I'm talking with Kristin Bekkeseth, a partner from Ernst & Young here in Norway. We often hear about AI and how it's influencing our lives or how it will in the future, but it often comes with a negative connotation. So in this episode, we're talking about how to build trust to AI, how to ensure that the technology has good morals and ethics and how do we apply it, and also how to reduce bias. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It was really interesting. Okay, Kristin, thanks for coming over.
Thank you.
You just finished your presentation.
I did.
Do you want to explain what it was about?
I will. The presentation was about trust in AI. The question, how do you build trust into AI?
And how do you trust AI?
Exactly. And I started even a bit earlier than that. So why do we need to trust it? Because you can look at certain models, the Netflix algorithm showing you what the next film will be. Do you need to trust it? Either it gives you something good or it doesn't. It doesn't really matter that much.
You lose 2 hours of your life.
Exactly. You may lose 2 hours of your life. But what about if you're sitting as the CEO or the chief executive of a company and all your colleagues are building models and those models are actually the price of insurance, for example, and it gives certain people really good prices for insurance and other people, they don't get insurance at all. Then you really need to know whether that is a good decision. Is it acceptable? Is it ethical? Is it socially responsible? Maybe it is, because maybe it's based on historic data, which shows that certain people are not good risk. So the model may even be right, but is it ethical? Maybe not.
That is a really good question.
And that's where you get the question of, do you need to trust AI or not?
You bring up historical data. One of the historical data which we often use in such sessions is what have people formally decided? Like, for example, should we give insurance to this person or not? But people also inherently do have biases.
They do.
So we're talking a lot about algorithms and their biases, but we also have to remember that we as humans have significant biases as well.
We do. And what we're saying when we're talking about bias is that there's bias everywhere. There's always bias, and you can never get rid of it. And history has bias.
Written by the victorious part.
Yeah, written by the victorious part. And you need to be aware of that when you build the model, because if you're building your model on historical data, you will reinforce the bias that is already there.
Exactly.
And the model is efficient, so it will make the bias even more efficient, which is maybe not exactly what you want out of the model. But if you are aware of that, humans always make biased decisions. You could actually build a model that takes away the bias that's inherent in our human nature.
How do you do that?
By thinking.
Okay.
This was my argument on trust in AI. The only way you can build trust in AI is by using people. People build the models, but we need to be aware when we build the models what the biases are and what we need to get out of the model. And then we need to employ some systems and structures around the models, which also makes it possible to identify new biases that may come into the model that you didn't predict in the first place, so that you can always alter what is the output of the model as well.
But how do you find that bias, and how do you define it? Like, what are you looking for?
What are you looking for?
Because some biases could just be the outcome. Like, some people are more risky than other people. That's just the model working well.
But this is where I started. You have certain things. Historically, we have made some bad decisions as human beings. I was using the example, which is very well known from the American justice systems, where they were trying to predict crime.
Yeah.
And they used historical data showing that more colored people were in jail. That is not to say that they should be in future, or that they are actually more criminal or prone to be criminal. So that is the data bias. But then you have alternative biases like the fact that you may think that men are better equipped for certain jobs, that certain groups of people are not interested in doing certain tasks. It's something that is in the historical data, but that we want to take away going forward.
Completely agree. But that's not an easy task. As I said, one of the ways of doing it is to think. But which areas is it important to think about while making these algorithms?
Well, we have developed, in EY, we've developed a framework for trust in AI, which includes a number of elements.
Okay.
What we're looking at there, first of all, we are actually starting with the performance of the model. What are you trying to achieve with your model? Is it to replicate the history, or is it to make an even better decision than what you did before? That will drive what data you're using and how you're actually building your model. So that's very important. Then you will need to address bias in the fact that whatever model you build, you need to ask yourself, what biases may we have in this model, in our data and in this model? And then you need to just structure, okay, for this particular problem, how do I manage it? Then you have a couple of other issues as well. Resilience. It's, after all, when we're automating decisions and building models, it is because we want it to run autonomously.
Exactly.
But you introduce some great risks. What if somebody hacked it? What if somebody tampered with your model and actually changed the decision or the types of outcome that you're getting from that model? You need to put in place, I'll call it an infrastructure, to manage those kinds of issues as well. Depends, of course, on what kind of model you've got, what the strictness and greatness of those infrastructures, but you need to have something in place.
Absolutely, but that's a really difficult topic as well.
It is.
Because in most algorithms, it's really hard to read the code and understand how the algorithm actually thinks. So if someone tampered with it and introduced one type of bias, it's really hard to know.
It is, but that is actually a separate element in our trusted AI framework, explainability. You need to be able to explain your model, maybe to monitor if someone's tampering with it, but also, of course, because our customers expect it, even regulators expect it. Now with GDPR and regulations about data, you need to be able to explain what data did you use to build this model, and what is the basis for your conclusion? Back to the pricing of insurance.
But how do you do that? For me, that sounds really, really difficult, because it's inherently the opposite way of how machine learning algorithms work. They find patterns that we don't see, and it's hard for us to explain.
I think that has been the case, but this is a development that's going really fast.
Okay.
Even in the session just before the break, we had one of our colleagues showing exactly how they were explaining the model they used for, I think it was a machine game. So it is possible to illustrate it for individual models and for collective models as well.
Okay. That's a really important step forward, because imagine I don't care how Netflix recommends me movies as long as it recommends me something proper. But for example, if an AI says I should go for this type of surgery, not this type of pill, I will understand why.
Yeah.
Especially if it goes wrong.
You do. I agree. I think it's. I'm sure we're going to become a lot better at explaining our models as well. But now it's at least possible to do it. There's another dilemma particularly then for corporates. That is, even though you know exactly the basis for the decision of this model, how do you explain it to someone who doesn't understand models in the first place? There is some translation having to be done there.
That's also not an easy job.
No, it isn't.
Do you believe that when we're going forward, because data-driven decisions are going to be more popular, it's unavoidable, are we going to have more AI courses introduced in the business world, or are we going to delegate that type of responsibility to a specific role like Chief AI Officer?
Oh, that's an excellent question. There's. I need to answer that in 2 steps, because first of all, what is happening with the availability of data and the technology becoming more easily available? You have AI in every part of your company now. It is in sales, it's in marketing, it's in product development, it's in pricing, it's in your back office, in your logistics, in your payments. It is everywhere. And that means there's a lot of people actually either building or deploying models. You know, some of the largest systems like Salesforce, front-end customer systems, they have AI built into them. So you can always you can think of it as buying it off the shelf. But you need to be able to understand it and explain it and do the ethical discussion as well, which means it's no longer only a technical issue to use AI. You need technicians, and they need to be good, and they also need to understand the questions of ethics and social responsibility. But the way you really become successful with the use of AI is if you have your middle managers and top managers also understanding AI. They don't need to program it as such, but they need to understand the bias questions. They need to understand weaknesses and strengths of models.
And is that just relevant for AI, or is that for every type of technology? Because currently now we are on the precipice of a lot of technologies pushing the boundaries of what's possible to do, like blockchain, autonomous drive, and autonomous companies, AI, machine learning, and all of those technologies. There's so much to learn about. How do we manage all of that? Hi everyone, and sorry for the short interruption. But if you come this far into the podcast, it means that we do something right here at Virtuell Hverdag. So I would love if you can just spend 2-3 seconds to rate, comment, or share this podcast. It would mean very much to me. So thank you, and back to the episode.
Does everyone need to
Understand
know everything?
Right?
No, they don't.
How will you have time?
We won't have time for that. I think there is a reason. The reason why so many people in a company need to understand models is exactly the fact that we're using those models to make decisions. And those decisions we normally made as human beings. So that's why everyone needs to understand that. Technology in general, yes, everyone needs to be able to understand and use technology in our corporates. Technology is also everywhere in our corporate world and in the public world. But when you come into specifics, like does everyone need to understand how to use cloud solutions or blockchain technology? No, they don't. Because there you can have technical people who understand what it takes to deploy this type of technology in this organization.
Understand. So there's a difference between a technology as a technology and a technology like AI, which is more about a cognitive model. Okay, so how do you see our evolution in the corporate landscape during the next 3 to 5 years? Do you believe that more people will actually take that step and learn this, or will be thrust upon them by disruptive companies?
What I see, I work a lot with smaller companies and startups, but I also work a lot with the larger corporates. And all the larger corporates that I know, they invest a lot of money in these kinds of questions at the moment. So you know you have 2 driving forces. It is the smaller startups and the larger corporates, and it's always going to be a combination of the 2. And I like the idea of startups and our ecosystems, etc. But my personal opinion is that more and more of that will go into the larger corporates in the end, because you need to be able to scale. Our society today is all about scale, and then you need to become part of a larger organization.
Yeah, I believe so as well. And as I said, the main topic here is trust into algorithms. And it's especially the largest companies that have the biggest impact on our daily lives as well.
Yeah.
So it's those companies that have to invest most time and money into building ethically correct algorithms.
Yeah.
But we talked about ethics a bit earlier in this podcast as well. And that's also not an easy topic to cover, because ethics in general includes a lot of different emotions and opinions. So how do you know what's right in coding ethics into algorithm and building trust? Because some people will disagree with the outcome no matter what, or how the algorithm is made. Because it is a process, it's decision making, and we make decisions differently from person to person.
Yeah, it is. I agree. There is. It's impossible to say exactly what is right and what is wrong. Even though we know many people will agree on certain issues, and many people will disagree on other issues. I think how you can handle it is that and how it's. Some companies are starting to do this as well. That they establish an ethics board and they actually start discussing what is within our ethical boundaries and what is outside of them. And only by addressing those kinds of questions, you can form an opinion. And you know, this talk about tone at the top, I actually do believe in the tone at the top. I've seen that in many corporates. If you have a strong tone at the top, talking about, yes, we are here for our customers, we are also doing the right thing for these customers, then that will trickle down into the organization.
And have you seen the same demand in the market for more ethical solutions? Like, are we pressing for it as a society?
You know, it's like we said in the beginning. We all have biases, and we've always had biases. So what the increase of AI is doing to society is actually that you're taking these questions and they become more prevalent in society. Because before, just because a person made a biased decision, this was this person, you can maybe even make an excuse for that person having made a biased decision. But now, since it's a model who's done it, there's no excuse.
Exactly.
So as such, we're discussing more of those ethical dilemmas that have always been there.
And we're also, as you say, expecting much more from a machine than from a human, because humans aren't perfect.
Exactly.
But we do expect our machines to be.
We do.
And that's because this is a really tough question, like most of the questions which we have discussed here. But if you put some terskelverdier or some levels of acceptance, basically, for those ethical boards, how hard should they be? For example, one of the problems which we have with autonomous cars now is that not only do they need to be better than people at driving, which they have been for the past 10 years, but they need to be absolutely perfect. And every time an autonomous car crashes, does something wrong, that's a much, much bigger news story than if a person crashes by their fault. So how do we handle that we need to have more trust to machines than to people? Like, as a company, as a leader that is building these algorithms, how would you market or talk about that, explain that to the board? What would you do? Because it's really difficult.
I think it is a reality, what you're saying, that we are having higher standards, and we probably need to have those higher standards as well. So it's not a discussion on whether to lower the standards or not. It is about finding out, given that this is an expectation, how do you manage that? And this is partly why we then built this Trust in AI framework, because yes, we're seeing the dilemmas, and as long as you don't have the trust, then you won't get the value out of the models that you're building. So there's no easy answer to it. You have to deal with it, basically. But you can deal with it by looking at the ethical questions, looking at the social responsibility, looking at what you actually want to get out of your model and how you manage the biases.
And this, I believe this is one of the most interesting fields which we currently have. But I don't see the representation of this field in our schools. So if I want to work with ethics and AI and building trust into algorithms, what should I choose during my education to be actually able to work with that, to be qualified to work with that? Is philosophy? Is that the closest one which we have?
What we see at the moment is that there's lots of different professions coming into this. And that may be the right way to do it, actually. I'm not sure if we will ever have an education which is called Trust in AI. Because what we need is someone who's really good at building models. But those who are really good at building models, they also need to understand the ethical dilemmas and the questions relating to data and bias and that we went through before. So we need to build it into those kinds of educations. But then it's like I said with the leadership before. Yeah, we need other people in our society, decision makers, leaders in particular, to understand enough about AI to actually put this into context of their own profession and then challenge it. But that's for challenging it, but also for using it. If we get lots of people, I don't know, in the legal profession to use AI to actually make better judgments, then they will have the incentive to make those algorithms work really well as well.
Absolutely, completely agree. And one interesting legal test which they did is, for example, with the judges in Israel, I believe, where they saw that people have significant biases when they're hungry and when they're not.
Yeah.
So when they were hungry, they made significantly stricter judgments.
Yeah.
So I believe that AI will change quite a lot of our future.
Yeah, hopefully it will, and hopefully it can help us reduce some of those biases and weaknesses that we have as humans. But I really do think we need to be very conscious of how we're using it, because the potential for misuse and the potential for using it in some way that is detrimental to our society is also quite great.
So do you have some final tips to a new business leader or a business leader that is considering to enter this field of AI and machine learning technology and understand it, and how to build trust into those algorithms?
I think go for it. Really seek out, test and explore what this technology can do, because it is very powerful and it is very useful. But then at the same time, be skeptical and careful about how to build it. And then you can use this trusted AI framework that I told you about.
That's really cool. Thanks a lot, Kristin.
Thank you very much.